Welcome to Brilliant Guns. I'm Adrian. Just thought I'd do a quick video. It's become quite apparent since we've been selling air rifles the last 2 months now that a lot of people have been new to the sport. We take for granted some of the basics that they're not very familiar with, and it's basically sort of setting up the gun just to start with. So I thought I'd just do a quick video. This is one of our customers' guns, waiting for collection. I said I'd do a bit of a setup for him anyway, so I had an opportunity to do the video at the same time. So, this gentleman has chose Fireark HW35, which has been out, as I say, since God's dog was a puppy type of thing. So, in the box, obviously, we've got target instructions. This gun, I believe, was first designed back in 1951, I think, and hasn't changed an awful lot since then. So like the old days, air rifles are all kind of open sights, so these will come with a good set of quality. Sights you could just for shooting, but modern shooting is everyone wants to use a scope, and that's where often it can fall down a little bit, is knowing how to set the scope up. So now, I've got a handy gun butler. Now, this is something obviously we use in the shop. Not everyone's going to have one of these, to be fair. And the other alternative to do it is perhaps if you're at home, to get a cushion, a pillow, or something soft, that we can try hold the gun upright as much as we can possible. So you can sit into a pillow maybe and just stop the gun from falling over, just so it allows you to mount the scope up. But being as we're here in the shop and we've got this handy gun butler, we'll use this. Right, so the gun's nice and secure. It's imperative that we use a good set of quality mounts. Now, with old style of mounts is the dovetail. Now, this being the usual 9.5mm to 11mm dovetail, we choose the 11mm dovetail mounts. Now, this option we've gone for the low mounts because this particular customer has decided to go for quite traditional 2.7x32 scope. The idea is that we can keep the scope as close to the bore as possible, so we'll go with some lower mounts. Now, it's quite handy with pretty much any quality mounts you'll get. They'll come with all the tools you need. Technically speaking, you could do with a torque screwdriver, which we've got here, to properly torque up the screws for both the scope screws and the mount side of things. But in reality, most people aren't going to have one, and it's not strictly necessary when it comes to air rifles. Firearms, definitely, where you've got a lot more recoil, but with air rifles, I'll show you a nifty way of doing it. So, we'll start by unscrewing the mounts out, and we're placing those on the actual dovetail. So they need to sit nicely in to the rail itself. Now, just put them on loosely to start with. Okay. Give me a moment or two. I'll just undo the screws at the top here as well. Now, it's important to keep these safe because I've quite a habit of losing these down the side. But the thing, when you put the gun together, is remember not to over tighten things. That's where you can come a cropper. Over tight and over loose. So we're keeping the mounts loose on the rails so we can set the eye relief. That's the distance between your eye and the back of the scope. There you go, example of me dropping them. I say if we use the torque screwdriver, might be an awful lot quicker job of doing this. But most people say at home only use the Allen keys that are provided. So we'll do it as if you're doing it at home. So that's our 2.7x32 scope. That's quite a small objective lens on there. Now we'll place the scope just gently. Now I know sort of from experience that's generally roughly where it's going to fit. So I'll need to drop these back on again. Now this is often the bits where people come a cropper by tightening one side up first. And it's something we need to gently do one side slightly, then the other side, and keep working it so there's an even pressure on both sides of the scope. Now, as I mentioned, this is the dovetail scope mount, a 9.5 by 11mm, that's the width of the dovetail. They also come in 13mm, which is the BSA models are 13mm for some reason. I've also got another type of mount option here, which is quite popular on a lot of new air rifles, which is the Picatinny. So I'll briefly show you that as well. But the principle is the exact same. And notice I'm only putting these in loosely to start with. Right, so that's those on kind of loosely. But what we've got to be careful is they're not too loose. So in a minute I'm going to pick the gun up, just check the eye relief. So it's worth just nipping one of these up just a little bit. So good and secure. Pick the gun up. I'm going to mount the gun. I'm going to look down the scope. Now what I'm looking for is the height between my eye and the ocular bell, that it's comfortable, and also the crosshairs are level. So my scope's loose in the mount, so I can twist that around so the scope hairs are perfect. That's great. What I'll do is these screws down here, I'm going to tighten these. I'll use the long part of the Allen key, just a bit of resistance there. I'm not going to over tighten these. Again, just so I've got a bit of resistance and stop. You feel it start to bind and stop. Right. So next part is the top screws. Now what we're looking to do is to keep an even gap but where the mount, top part of the mount meets the bottom part. So we have a nice even gap between the two of them. So that's where we need to nip them up. Watching the other side. There's a nice even gap between the two of them. Now the only pressure we need is use the small part of the Allen key. Don't use the long side. I say that's going to put too much torque on the screw. Use the top part. And just nip there tightly. Just a bit of resistance. And the same on this side. And notice I'm jumping between left to right and back again, so we've got an even grip on the mounts. And again, just tweaking up the ball. That's all I need. Just a little bit. Right, so we've got a scope mounted. Next thing we need to do is set the focus. Now, this is the ocular bell, where you've got the diopter adjustment there. Everyone's going to be slightly different. In order to set that, we'll look through the scope at a plain background. And what we want to do is we want to look through the scope until the crosshairs are perfectly crisp. And that's it. You then focus the ocular bell. The other thing that's worth doing when you buy a new gun, it's optional. Depends on how, I suppose, out of the box accurate you want the gun to be. But it's having a quick clean of the barrels. Now, often what's left in the barrels is a bit of oil, preservative, residual effects from manufacturing. So sometimes you can run the gun for a couple hundred pellets, and it'll probably do the same job as I'm going to do now, but this just speed things up for yourself. So a couple of options. I say this is the HW 35 break barrel, so we just release the lever there and cock the gun down. Always hold on to end of the barrel. First option, which is probably the easiest, is to use a cleaning pellet. So a little felt little pellet we're putting in dry. This is normal. Now, we need to be very careful with these pellets. Although they're only based of felt, they've still got a bit of power behind them. So I've just got a little target here, just to demonstrate. And I say this because don't be tempted sort of to shoot it at inanimate objects or pets even. So if I just take a shot, you can see quite loudly that cleaning pellet has quite an effect on the target. So be careful of that. But a couple of those pellets down the barrel will have desired effects. That'll clean any muck that might be in there. Other option a lot of people go for is a pull through. And that's exactly what as it says. It's as I said, the clean the barrels is optional, but it's good practice, I suppose. With a gun, you'll have a couple of dry patches. So what we need to do is, with a gun, if we pull through the barrel, so as the name suggests, say there's the patch and a pull through. So I'll actually just gently get that to pull through the barrel, and that should pick up any residual muck or oil that's left in there. So most of that has been taken out now, because obviously I've put the cleaning pellet through there, but there's still a little bit of oil on there. I say good practice, best practice, but not necessarily mandatory. So going back to that, setting up our spring or regular rifle, should we say. Same principles, mount a scope on a PCP apply. Later on we'll do a bit of zeroing, so we'll take down to the range and show how to set up the gun for zeroing. But I'll quickly just show you the other option, which I mentioned, was a Picatinny rail. So this is the more modern method of attaching the scope. So rather than having the dovetail, we've got like individual little rails on there, and that requires a different sort of mount. So let's use the FX infinite adjustable mounts. So if we notice the screw going through there fits directly or runs alongside those rails. So if I'm to say same principle as a dovetail, but this time that rail sits into the rails there. Now the beauty of those is if you are taking on and off your scope, for example, your different scopes, different night vision, your zero should remain the same because the scope is sitting on the same part of the rifle. When I say exact same principle of tighten these up, it's your finger tight, the resistance, and there we go. So that's the first stage when you get your new gun. I say next video we'll do is introduction to zeroing, so we'll keep it nice and simple, whatever works for me. So hopefully that's been really helpful for you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.